Okay, you're good to go.
Okay, cool. I just sent the bike lane plan um, via a link in the chat. So if anyone hasn't seen it yet, they can take a look through and give any feedback that they get maybe in real time. And I'm assuming everyone here has already seen it, at least in person at the presentation, or now more recently in PDF form. Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is our first bike lane plan session. The purpose of this meeting is mainly for everyone to be able to get their feedback in, at least verbally. We're gonna have another one of these in person in September when folks are, more in the city. And there's a lower chance of people being, far away. And we're also gonna launch, we may launch a text feedback method soon, so people can, sign up and text in their feedback if they can't manage to make it on the call or make it in person. All right. So um, the way we're gonna do this is ideally people are gonna raise their hands and we're gonna have some speaking time about the plan so you can get your feedback in and stuff like that. Um, Essentially, we don't have personally, I think the plan needs a lot of changes. I don't think the plan is, perfect as is. I think it's in a situation where it can do well with some feedback. And I think a big part of how we've been trying to run things is to have situations where the public can give feedback and we can all collect it, take into consideration, and make sure we get a plan that works for us as well as something that, improves on the situation we already have. So without any further delay, you can begin raising your hands to give feedback, and we're going to go through it one by one. Once again, the feedback plan is, sorry, the bike lane plan's in the chat. So if anyone can see that and click on that link, if you haven't seen it before, you can take a look at it right now and give your feedback as soon as you have it. The call is being recorded and live streamed so that all this feedback you give today is kept and we can see it again. And we're going to take into consideration and work with DOT to make sure that the feedback is implemented in the plan before it ever gets built out. Now, if folks are wondering how or what kind of feedback you can give, it can be any kind of critique. It can be a critique of the route of the bike lane. It can be a critique of the size of lanes. It can be a critique of anything essentially that you think could be like, material or useful for the plan itself. So adjustments to different sizes, adjustments to where the lanes go. These are all essentially pieces of feedback that we can use and help influence the final plan. All right, Julie, your hand is raised. You can go ahead. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so per review of the plan, I think one of the biggest concerns or something that I am noticing is just like the reduction in driving lanes or the travel lane to accommodate for the protected bike lane, especially on Brooklyn and Kingston, which I do feel like are succumb to traffic during those school hours regardless, which is like a heavy car traffic time between 3 and 5. So I'm kind of curious as to how the proposition for the reduction would, if there's like a traffic like impact plan or car, the impacts that it would have on drivers, as I am aware that this is mostly for bike lane creation, not so much like traffic flow. So I am kind of curious to see how that may impact, or that's like mostly what I am looking at.
Okay, solid feedback. Can you please repeat the exact area you're referring to? I'm going to pull it up on the screen and share my screen so everyone can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, no worries. So I was mostly talking about Kingston Avenue, the northbound traffic that happens during that 3 to 5 period. I will say Brooklyn Avenue also has some of that traffic, especially coming down from Eastern Parkway, going towards like Wingate. So it would
Mhm.
be slide, if it's numbered 26. I'm looking at slides 26 and the actual dimensions of the new proposition for the bike lanes.
Perfect. Yes. So this is like Lower Kingston around Rutland, Winthrop,
Yeah,
that area.
yeah,
Yeah. And your concern is around the northbound traffic on Kingston being kind of restricted using the bike lane here.
yeah. Like moving northbound through the district, going upwards towards Eastern Parkway.
Yeah, understood here. Yeah, currently, okay, I'll think that, yeah, that'll be recorded for sure because I think Kingston is one of the spots that's been pretty contested because some parts of Kingston are pretty big, like this section,
Yeah.
but you don't want to over restrict it to a point where it's kind of hard to manage, Makes sense.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but so will you clarify the slides because it really only explains or showing for over by Rutland, but I was kind of under the assumption that it that dimension would continue through the rest of Kingston or up Kingston. So I would say that even towards Rutland, it may not be as severe of an issue, but I will say once you passed Empire going into or getting closer to Eastern Parkway, that during that 3 to 5 or even like 2:30 is I'm sorry is uh is pretty jam packed during that after school hour.
Got you. I agree. And actually, that kind of adds to my personal biggest piece of feedback, which is that the upper parts of Kingston, it seems, are not being considered here, especially between Empire and the First. If I can
Right.
find the section on the screen here.
Right.
That part of Kingston Avenue, the way that they narrow it between Empire and Lefferts right here, essentially, leaves not even any room for a double parked car. So
Yeah.
this would be an emergency nightmare. This would be pretty much untenable, unusable
Yeah.
by any type of normal traffic in the daytime.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
this I think is yeah, fully agree on that. That feedback's gonna be recorded in Captain. That's I think that's maybe one of our biggest adjustments to DOT's plan.
okay. Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome. Sure you had Henry's on the floor. Go ahead.
Hey there. Thanks for giving me the time to speak. I was just calling in to say that I took a look at the plans when they came out and actually like a couple weeks ago when they did. And I was very excited to see the plan as it currently stands. I was particularly excited to see the addition of like a north-south bike lane on Brooklyn and Kingston. I live on Kingston Avenue, just north of Empire Boulevard, and I think having a protected bike lane would be a big improvement for me there. As it stands, I normally use Bedford when I'm going north, but I find it to be a pretty unpleasant place to bike, even though there is a bike lane, just due to the high levels of traffic on that road and also the fact that it's not protected. So I was very excited to see that a north-south bike lane was added here, and I think for me that was a really cool part of the plan and something that I think would be a major improvement over the current way that Kingston and Brooklyn Avenues work. I would love to see this extended north of Empire Boulevard as well.
Is it feedback positive?
Yeah, my feedback here is positive. I don't
Okay.
really the plan as
Okay,
it's
good.
the
Yeah, we're
east
gonna
I wouldn't use as much.
okay. And just to add to your point a little bit, I will also note that Bedford Avenue is currently known as Brooklyn's deadliest bike lane. So it's not exactly a safe spot to bike in. It's not just anecdotal, it's backed up by evidence. So it is a pretty deadly place to bike. And some of our only bike fatalities occur when the Empire bike lane ends at Bedford Avenue. So it really is not a safe spot
Yeah.
as it is right now.
Totally feel
Okay. I think, George, you had your hand up first, so you have the floor.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Drew on this. I think the protected bike lane is really exciting idea, and there really aren't any good protected bike lanes in this area that go north-south between Empire and Eastern Parkway that I can think of. And the same thing for me is like Bedford's the only option, and it is not protected. And because it's not, the bike lane's just always becomes a parking lot basically, and the bikes have to whip out into traffic. So as someone who like commutes with my bike, I think something like this seems like necessary infrastructure. The only other thing I would say, and I don't know if this is something that DOT has any control over, but I think that some kind of red light or speeding cameras could be really helpful in just slowing traffic down, keeping people from, because there's a lot of speeding on all of these roads that go north-south, like Rogers, Nostrand. Some other kind of way to enforce speed, people who speed and also people who go through red lights, because I see that quite a lot. Even people who go through red lights intentionally, who sort of pause and then keep going. So I think some kind of traffic calming really is necessary. And I think the bike lane would be very helpful, but I think it could go further.
Okay, good to hear. And after this call, I think we will be launching a text-based feedback survey. So whether your feedback is positive, negative, or neutral, please feel free to add it in that document so that we have another record of it. Amy, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for holding this meeting. I can't say I drive a lot. I mean, I think any suggestion of anything north of Empire is kind of something that's going to cause a lot of problems for businesses along Kingston Avenue. And I think that when we're looking at the streets, a certain part of, say, Kingston is very wide, and that can like accommodate, the angle parking and all that. As we're heading north, I mean, it's like really, really tight, say like from East New York to Empire. And, as you said a few minutes ago, is double parked cars, and if the traffic lanes are reduced to one car going through, I'm seeing it, pardon pun, as a total no-go. I'm seeing it as a terrible safety issue. I'm seeing it as making the situation much worse. So essentially, I think for safety, it's important to be keeping the traffic flowing with the cars, which is like, probably 95% of the people using the roadway. And, I do understand that the two people who were riding the bikes, would like, would like more bike access. But the fact of the matter is the streets are very narrow. They were already congested. You have a lot of elderly people living in those apartment buildings. And, I'm visualizing, say, like Empire to like East New York, apartment buildings on both sides, elderly people, they get accessorized. When the accessoride comes, the elderly need access. When the accessoride is there, you only have one lane of traffic. It's kind of like not fair. It's like saying, the elderly don't count because they don't move fast enough. As far as Brooklyn Avenue goes, sometimes, I'm there. I mean, again, as we're going south, what I'm seeing is as these streets go south, is more doable, this plan. But in those narrow areas where you have apartment buildings on both sides of the street, it's not probably to the benefit of the vast majority of the people using the roadways to be reducing traffic lanes. So I am highly concerned about this proposal. In addition, the parking situation also, not everyone could afford, not everyone could afford a place that has on-premises parkway. Not everyone could afford to park their bike in their apartment and get on an airplane and visit home, drive around. So what I'm saying is, for people who need on-street parking, for people who need accessory, for people who need safety, I'm saying eliminating traffic lanes is highly problematic.
Understandable.
Oh, and just saying hi. There's some that is there that I saw on the little thumbnail. So not to point anyone out, but hi all.
No worries. Thank you for your comments, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for
You
your
have a lot of hands
patience.
raised now. No, you're welcome. Jay, your hand was next. You have the floor here.
Hey, it was did you meet Jay Romuto?
Yeah, I met you.
Okay, that's me, Eric. I don't live in this exact area, and unfortunately, I just got this plan. I didn't get it beforehand. But I am a person that likes bike lanes too, actually. I live on Winthrop Street between Flatbush and Bedford. And the one thing I do have that I saw on this plan, I think on page 26, that I really do enjoy are there's a bunch of spots that were called out for daylighting. Oh, maybe it's not page 26, sorry.
It's further. I think I know.
But there's a bunch of things. I don't see a lot of it in my area of the neighborhood, but I do have it on Bedford and Winthrop. There is some daylighting, and I really, really like that a lot. And I think that's a great idea, especially when you talk about safety for seniors and little kids. It gives you the ability to walk out in the street a little bit and have less time to have to cross that lane. And it makes me feel way safer too, honestly. I wish it was like every intersection. But the other thing I would say about my particular block, people are always cutting through going west on Winthrop because they try to go west, go down Flatbush, and then hook under the park. So people are always driving through on my particular street, even though it's not that wide. It's one travel lane that's kind of wide, and you can kind of squeeze by with a second car. If like one car pulls over, double parks, the other car can just kind of squeeze through. And those moments when the cars are squeezing through are some of the like safest times to step out in the street, let's say to get on your bike or to cross the road or whatever. So I think, I don't know, maybe the DOT is thinking by making all these streets narrower that it makes them safer, because it's the only way to, I've seen like with my eyes that cars slow down when they have to pass another car close by. It slows traffic, but it calms everything down, because without a car double parked in my block, people will fly down the block trying to make the light and make the left on Flatbush, trying to beat it. I've seen people fly by so fast. And it's like, if you step out, you're right in the road. You can't see anything because cars are parked around you. You step out and boom, a car like flies by and you can hear it speeding down the road. And I don't know. I'm thinking that's what they're going for. I haven't read through the whole thing, but the daylighting part, I know, I think is great.
Okay, glad to hear your point. If I can add to your comments for a little bit, I will say two things. One, yeah, stoplights and lane widths tend to be two of the reasons people speed. People speed down the north and south avenues in our district because the blocks are smaller. The short ends of the blocks are on those streets, so people will typically like you can beat like two amber lights if you're going fast enough. Meanwhile, if you're going east or west at Empire, the blocks are so long that you don't really have much hope to do that. So because of the size of those blocks on those streets, people are more inclined to speed so they can beat more lights before they turn fully red. And the other point you were making, that, you know, when people are squeezing through, they get slow, that's true. And there's evidence to show that, you know, when like people tend to drive as fast as the road looks, it's safe. So when you have a bigger lane, like Linden Boulevard, like larger roads with bigger lanes, people tend to drive faster on those than they do in the lanes. And they're like lines painted that are just narrower. So I do think part of DOT's MO here is to make the lanes appear smaller so folks drive a little slower. Jolie, you have the floor.
Yeah, so something that I had just been considering was on Kingston Avenue. It's a very heavily commercially active avenue. Therefore, when it comes to deliveries and truck drop-offs to supply a lot of these shops in the area, that's like another traffic component within Kingston Avenue that, in my personal opinion, as a driver and as a biker, I do partake in both activities in the district. I do think that having a northbound direction bike lane on Kingston Avenue would be more conducive. It doesn't have direct two lanes drawn on, so for the most part, drivers are more comfortable doing a singular lane drive on that avenue, which would, you know, give more room for not only a protected bike lane, parked cars, and it is also predominantly a residential avenue, meaning you're not going to have a lot of delivery trucks stopping, which also impedes the flow of traffic, those kind of factors that, you know, as a universal impact, both biking, driving, pedestrian, and just access in general is like a all comprehensive motion. So I do feel like having a northbound bike lane on New York Avenue would be very conducive for that manner, just like space wise, even if it meant like starting on Kingston over by Rutland Road, coming up from Winthrop, which is generally wider, and also like staying within the school lanes and like the school activity, which I understand. But then maybe once it gets to Empire, going slightly west the two avenues to then continue northward on New York Avenue so that people have space, both drivers and bikers, and kind of like alleviates that flow of traffic, which in my opinion only exacerbate, you know, reckless driving when people are frustrated. Not only we live in a district where we do have 3 different hospitals in our neighborhood that require driving access, and so exacerbating traffic problems only, you know, I would say encourages more problems when it comes to those emergency vehicles or delivery trucks. So, yeah, New York Avenue should definitely get some looks.
Thank you for your comment, and I and the committee agree with you. So I'm not sure if everyone here remembers or knows about it, but my committee and we built a bike lane draft plan of our own back, I think, in May. And it included that. We avoided putting a bike lane on Kingston Avenue north of Lefferts because the street narrows. But after we held a vote on that, DOT presented their plan, which kind of doesn't have some of the fixes that our plan had in it. So that's something that we're looking at. And we really want to avoid having a bike lane, especially one that takes away, you know, like excess lane space above Lefferts Avenue because Kingston's just not wide enough for it. The
Yeah, I
only
agree.
way they can make it wide enough is if they like ban parking on one side of the street, and that's a
Right.
terrible idea. So
Right. Okay, awesome. I look forward to seeing more resolutions on New York Avenue bike lane then.
mhm. Teresa, your hands up. You're next on the floor. You're muted. Maybe give a chance to unmute. All right.
All right. Hi.
Hi.
I live in CB9, and I do bike and drive and walk frequently. I agree with the assessment that Kingston Avenue is a commercial district and it's very, very busy, and it has extremely busy times, especially on Fridays, as we know. And but there should not be a bike lane there. It should be left as it is with parking and pedestrians, so for pedestrians and cars. Bicycles don't need to be there except to I ride over there and I can barely, there's like really nowhere to park. It's I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. I couldn't get my phone off mute, but it's a new phone. So I agree that Kingston Avenue should not have a bike lane and that it should go around somehow, has the committee decided. I'm a little surprised that you are all meeting in the summer, considering committees haven't been formed yet. We're supposed to end the committees at the end of the
Teresa,
session
one second,
and
let me-
reform, right? Well,
Teresa,
Ethan, you
this is-
gotta let me talk, right?
I was answering your
You
question.
know,
I was answering that.
I want to finish. I'm not finished
Okay.
talking. You're interrupting me. Can I finish?
Mhm.
So I'm surprised that we're meeting with a transportation committee that hasn't been formed yet in the middle of the summer. I am very surprised, and I question that. So I wanted to mention that, and so I didn't have time to really go over the assessment again. But I don't think Kingston should have a bike lane at all. Lower part of Kingston, yeah, but not above. And protected would be nice, but thank you.
You're welcome. The reason why I interrupted you was to quickly correct something. You were making it sound as though the transportation committee met over the summer. We did not. I'm referring to things that we did back in May and June that were, before the hiatus began. Right now, there isn't a transportation committee happening right now, but I'm referring to the past few months before.
Yeah,
July,
I
when we
understand.
were
I
still
understand
open.
that. I understand that, but it's I don't know. We don't usually have meetings in the summer, and there's no committee to have meetings, so I don't know if it's ethical.
This isn't a
So
committee
I'm
meeting
just
either.
questioning that.
No, this isn't a committee meeting either. This is just the board talking to the public.
I don't know. I got emails that said it was transportation committee meeting today,
No, this is just a board.
and it was
this is just a
discussed
public.
it was discussed on a transportation committee list as well. So that means
When?
transportation committee.
I'm not sure about that. I don't remember. I don't
I
recall
am.
doing that. Well, what happened was the transportation committee did make their bike lane plan back in May, and then the board office, Dante, myself, we decided to host some meetings so that people have enough time to get their feedback in. We didn't want to have to cram it all into September. And although the board isn't conducting official voting meetings, we can still host meetings like this where we just have surveys or hear from the public, because we all want more of this.
Did you put up posters and stuff in that area? Kingston
Posters where?
Avenue? Kingston Avenue in particular, because they're going to be the most affected.
We didn't put any posters on that. Well, putting up posters on lampposts is illegal, so we didn't do that. But
it's not illegal to put up posters. What are you talking about?
No, I'm saying on lampposts. That's illegal. We don't do that. But
I
we can
didn't
talk to
say that.
businesses. No, I'm letting you know what's illegal. I'm not saying you said that. I'm just saying, like, we can put up posters in businesses and that kind of stuff and have them on windows, but when people usually think of lampposts.
Well,
and that
thank
sort
you
of
for
thing,
that legal correction of where posters can go and cannot. I don't understand how it's relevant to this discussion.
I'm saying we didn't put them on lampposts for that reason. I'm not saying that we can't put posters anywhere. You can, but
So I'm just asking, did you put up posters? I didn't say, did you put lit posters on lampposts? I don't understand that detail there. It's a little confusing. There's plenty of businesses that you could put a poster in the window or drop off or something like that. Because I know a lot of people would like to be involved in this discussion, especially the people that live over there, and how are they going to be informed, right?
No, that's very true. I mean, the board office spoke to quite a few people. There was a survey that was ran that got about 900 responses, I believe. There was a lot of work going into this, even though it didn't seem like it was all over the street. But we did get some responses from different members of the community, and there are going to be more of these. And we also figured that it would be easier to reach people via the e-blast than just with posters. So we didn't really do any posters this time.
Yeah, I don't think we really ever do that, except when a few people did it for the green market from the community board. One of them was me.
Okay. But this is the first of more. We're gonna have another one of these sessions in September.
Okay.
And if it's okay, we will have more notification go out, but there'll be more of these. Hey Tara, is that the entirety of your comment, or do you want to continue at all?
For now, yes, I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Jonathan, your hand's up. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jonathan Berman. So I'm against it, and I think that it's going to cause it's going to harm the community actually. And the reason is because, like Tara said, and other people, it's a very busy corridor, and restricting it even more, while it might benefit riders, is going to is really going to restrict the entire community. Now, currently, the situation might be not great, but when you look carefully at the numbers, and I don't want to minimize children's injuries in any way, shape, or form, but over a period of the 5-year study, only one child was actually injured seriously. And to make this huge change over one child that was injured seriously, I think it's a little drastic. In addition, when you look at the goal of you're asking more children to be. I mean, the whole idea is to bring more children out on bicycles in this massive amount of traffic, and I think that you're going to find yourself with many more injuries, many more inconveniences, and it will be something that is great on paper, but in reality, it's going to harm the community. Now, if it was off Kingston Avenue, if it was on a different avenue, there might be some way that it could be done in a safer way. But Kingston Avenue is so busy that I think that it is the wrong avenue to choose.
Fair point. Personally, I agree. I think Kingston Avenue south of Lefferts is viable considering the size and width of the street, and the fact that there's less traffic though. But yeah, the rest of it, it seems like it's just too much.
And you ask yourself, what is the goal of this anyway? That means, what is the goal of the program? What is the idea? And when you only have 10 blocks, the idea has to be that people within the 10 blocks can maneuver better. And I think that you're not going to find that. I think that you're going to find that more people are going to get hurt. And even though speed is restricted to 25 miles an hour, and maybe with the new Sammy's law be restricted to 20, people are still, it's really going to come back and do the opposite of what the community board is or the committee is trying to achieve. But actually, time will only tell.
The committee's plan is different from this. This is not what the committee necessarily wanted. So that's a whole different thing. But yeah, DOT's plans here, from what I understand, are mainly around helping reduce vehicular speeds in this area, helping facilitate more bicycle travel, whether for children, for adults, but mainly for children, which is why they're putting the lanes out of traffic. And mainly also trying to make like more connections to the rest of the district. And that's a goal that the committee was trying to, begin exploring in the last year, there are a lot of efforts to see how we can, effectively connect to existing bike lanes without having unsafe situations or, having streets that are too restricted. But there are some clear ways here that this plan doesn't really help that goal. Amy, your hand's raised. Do you have the floor?
Yeah, hi, okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess one thing with this meeting is usually when people are talking, you see their name, so it's, I'm like, it's a little hard to, form community if we're not seeing that. But anyway, just to add on to what I was saying, now I'm not sure exactly what this daylighting is. Is that the wider corners? Is that what that is, or what?
Yeah, the daylighting is when they widen sidewalks around corners so that people can kind of step out into the street and
Right,
have
that's
a
what
call
now
there.
the thing is, I just want wait. Okay, wait a second. Okay, so all that I declined. Okay, so as I raised two kids, and it was before all that, but I've heard from young mothers. Now it's not specifically for this, but I just want this to kind of be out there. These wide corners or this daylighting. The problem is when you're with little kids, and sometimes they can get away from you. In the days where they were getting away from you, they were in the parking lane. And now, if they're getting away or being reckless or anyone, you're not in a parking lane, you're in a full traffic lane. It's definitely a hazard. It's definitely a hazard whether you don't, in other words, like we're talking about bike lanes with buffers, but essentially the parking lane is a type of buffer between the pedestrian and the traffic, where you can get the bearings a little better. Now, also, one of my sons, certain point, his school is way down Eastern Parkway, which is probably like the best bike lane we have around. But then there was a very small portion, where there's school buses. So, like, same kid, and boy, did I get slammed by the school. For the one day I sent him on a bike. So, the situation is, I don't think the community, I don't think the city, the borough, the city should really be encouraging kids to be going around on bikes, because you could be riding a mile and a half, and everything is good, and it's just like those couple of blocks, are dangerous if there's other action going on. So I just wanted to put that out there. And thanks for running a really nice meeting.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I will also get that feedback forward for you. Has anyone else not spoken yet or given feedback? If you haven't and you would like to give some feedback, feel free to raise your hand. I'm planning to wrap up around 7:30, so we still have some time. If anyone has any feedback they haven't yet given. Drew, go ahead, you have the floor.
Hey there. So I didn't previously know about the discussions that the community board had had previously about putting a bike lane in on Kingston north of Empire Boulevard. I mean, I
South
bike.
of Leffert. Yeah.
Sorry, I was referring to stuff that people were saying previously about through the main commercial district. I mean, I bike more than I drive, so I'm generally in favor of bike lanes, but I do agree that in general, from the perspective of building out a network, like Kingston is not really a perfect Kingston north of Eastern Parkway, or sorry, north of Empire Boulevard is not really a perfect place to have a bike lane. I don't know if you were thinking about how down the line, like something would be stitched together into a more cohesive network. I think the New York and Brooklyn pair works better than the Kingston and Brooklyn pair. I think
Yeah,
echoing
we
saying there.
did speak to the, oh god, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you.
And yeah, I mean, I think this plan as it stands, like Kingston south of Empire Boulevard is considerably less like commercial and busy than north of it. But I agree, like if you're thinking about how to stitch things together into a network, the bike lane north of Empire Boulevard would be a much more major thing, one south of it.
Agreed. Yeah, and the Low Lefferts is a much bigger street. So that can definitely work, but this little segment between Empire and Lefferts is very often, it's gonna be a nightmare. I can see emergency vehicles pulling up here and the street might be full and people have to suddenly, you know, maybe move and it just, the lack of space would make it very difficult. So yeah, that's definitely a problem. George, feel free.
Yeah, hi. I hope I'm not like taking this too far off topic, but it just made me wonder actually about the Bedford Avenue bike lane. And since that's already like we're halfway there, we just need to sort of protect it. Has that been talked about? Just turning both those bike lanes into protected bike lanes instead of reintroducing like a whole new bike lane to a different street?
We haven't yet discussed that. I believe in September, based on who is on the committee, we'll see. But in the past year, we haven't focused on protecting the Bedford bike lane. There has been more attention pulled up lately to the fact of its, lack of safety. So it's kind of a renewed discussion happening right now. But no, we didn't discuss it very much last year. We focused a bit more on connectivity and trying to like have more links throughout the district as opposed to just like one or two north-south lanes for bikes.
Yeah.
That can
Yeah, I think I just
we
said
can
something,
put
a
that-
suggestion. It might be like, yeah, because I mean, we're already there, halfway there, right? In a way.
Yeah.
It just needs to be protected so people aren't parking in it. So that's my suggestion.
That's fair.
The other thing, I just have a question, actually. I'm just curious, from people have these very legitimate reasons they're skeptical of the bike lane on these streets. But I'm just curious what their thoughts would be about, or their suggestions would be about how to make these streets safer for kids. If anyone has an idea, I'd just be curious to hear what other people think about that, what their ideas are.
Fair enough. Welcome to the floor. Feel free to go ahead.
Was that like an open question? Because I do kind of have some ideas that I think we should definitely be pushing for speed bumps in the district, especially for those speed zones. As cameras seem like a great idea, they don't really they don't deter people from speeding. It's more of a reactionary precaution than a proactive.
Actually, 1 second. We had two hands raised. Let me just get to these two. But that was good. Your hands raised. Feel free to continue. Yep. Yeah. Oh, Amy, go ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah, so, all right, I mean, okay, maybe I'm showing my age with this one. The kids, I mean, I'm not, the cars, I mean, I just keep visualizing all the time. Not that I drive that much, stuck between, that Lefferts Empire there with all that commotion. But anyway, a lot of the safety has to be with the kids, I mean, I'm a retired teacher, I do self work, and we talk a lot about emotions and things, but I'm not seeing a lot being taught about safety, and a lot of how are the kids going to be safe goes back to, look both ways before you cross the street. Don't cross against the light. And so a lot of the responsibilities, what I'm saying is on the pedestrian, even if the pedestrian is very young, it's something that maybe the community, especially the children, need to be reached out for. As far as all the speeding, I mean, this definitely, in heavy traffic, there's no speeding going on, so that's not the issue. The issue is that we don't want to be in a situation where traffic is blocked and there's an emergency, and it's so blocked that, if it's blocked, then the kid might decide to jaywalk, and that's like really bad. So the children, they do need to be, and I'm not saying they're not educated, I just don't see it in the schools. They do need to be educated with safety, and we don't want to be making situations where pedestrians are getting desperate and they start jaywalking, which will make things a lot worse. And, as far as the protective bike lanes, I think people are coming up with good ideas. Less busy streets. I don't know how that's going to work with buses also. And wider streets. So, I think as a community, we can definitely pull it together. And besides that, when you're biking, I'm more of a walker, you're kind of doing it for the exercise. A person, might have to go a couple of blocks out of the way, but it's kind of like part of the adventure. It is. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Jolie, you were speaking earlier about ways to improve transportation. Feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, mostly just like trying to provide some feedback on like how we can look at transportation safety on a more holistic perspective rather than just, kind of, even though a lot of this does have to do with motor vehicles, let's not forget that a lot of parents do pick their kids up in school in a car. I feel like there are a lot of school districts that bring their speed zone down to 15 miles per hour with the implementation of speed bumps to kind of deter fast driving during these times. I think that's also a great start. And I know that you guys have mentioned how difficult it is to get speed bumps actually built or put into the district. So I feel like that should be something as a community we could definitely emphasize in our school zones, that let's lower our speeds, let's put up bumps to actually deter drivers rather than cameras, which are more reactionary and people find out after the fact, not so much, stopping them from speeding in that exact moment. But those are just some things I have off the top of my head. If anyone else has stuff.
Very useful. Menachem, your hands raised. Feel free on the floor.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you very much for this meeting. I've been following a lot about this topic. Just the idea, the whole idea with the DOT of removing parking spots, it's not only about the parking. People complain about the parking. People say there's more bikers than people who drive. But the fact is that people do have cars in the city. And the whole agenda, DOT trying to eliminate parking spots to make it more harder for drivers is not going to work. People, it gets cold here, it gets cold. People can't, not everybody can go on a bike. So we have to also consider people who have cars. And, eliminating parking spots, doing all this bike stuff is great, but it's not really taking everybody in consideration. It's not being inclusive for the people who have cars. That's one issue. Another issue is that tightening spaces, and I see it on a daily basis where I live, only only adds more road rage, makes drivers more frustrated, which causes people to take lights. We see it in the streets. When you give people a little more space, give them more flexibility, give them what they need. Don't take away their parking spots. These things are just going to make things worse. And number three, ambulances, emergency vehicles, how are they going to get through with one lane? Response time in the city is not the best, and we all know it. Response time from 911, police, and I see it even where I live on Winthrop, Albany. I see ambulances stuck. They can't get by because there's a one lane and they put bike lanes there. So all this stuff is a disaster. It's only going to make response time in people's lives worse. I mean, and we know it's not a secret that a lot of things that DOT does is for money, you know, and we know a lot, you know, a lot of it is business more than actually what works. I mean, a lot of it is business calculations. You see, you just look at what's being proposed. Parking lane, one travel lane. How is one travel lane if there's an ambulance that needs to pass by? How is the ambulance going to pass by? There's an emergency vehicle. How are they going to pass by? Was that taken into consideration? I mean, it's really not. Where I live, we have speeding all the time. I asked the I sent letters to the commissioner. I said, we need a camera. I said, please get us a camera. People speed. People almost got killed several times. No response because it's not such a busy block. Financially, maybe it doesn't make sense. We need the DOT to think about the residents, think about not only about putting cameras on Atlantic Avenue, Eastern Parkway, where there's 300,000 drivers a day. Put it where kids need to be safe. On Eastern Parkway, if they're speeding, it won't be as bad as on a side street where kids play. I mean, we have to think about this all again and reassess all this and think really, how can we really help the people? I mean, look at it clearly, the proposal. Thank you for bringing it up on the screen. Take it, make it into a one lane is not going to help. Ambulances will have a hard time passing by. And I see it, and we all know that. So squeezing drivers, squeezing motorists is not going to work. So if someone can explain it any other way, I mean, how are we going to get response time for emergency vehicles faster? I would love to hear it, but that's how I see it. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. I'd love to add to your point a little bit. Now, not all of the plan looks like this. This is just, in my opinion, the most unworkable part, because the lane is just too small. And if I'm not mistaken, lanes in New York City that have buses on them need to be at least 11 feet wide. In this lane, there isn't any bus going up Kingston below Empire, but there are still wide vehicles that have to come through, potentially fire, potentially ambulances, and a 10-foot lane is, I think, a 10-foot lane shouldn't be what is put here for any reason. So I think this is a bit too congested. Agree with you on that. Other parts of the plan are not as bad, like the parts below Lefferts Avenue, where there's generally more space left back for vehicles, but yeah, some parts of this don't work.
I mean, where did this proposal originate from? Who requested this kind of thing? Who's complaining that there's been, who's sitting and thinking of these solutions?
Well, I believe DOT's had a plan for a while to put bike lanes more throughout the city, and I believe there are actually, like, the city is legally required to build more bike lanes every year. However, but the committee, I was on the committee over the past year from station, and the committee did make a plan similar to this, but a bit different. And DOT presented this plan, which many of us don't think is adequate. In the sense of, we think it doesn't really have a happy medium between bike lanes and traffic.
Thank you very much for the committee for understanding and taking feedback from the community. I mean, this totally does more damage than good,
Understood. Sarah, you had your hand up earlier. Yeah, on the floor.
Hi, I just wanted to.
Wait, one second before you start. Let me just say, it's 7:28. We have about 2 minutes left. So everyone else who has their hand up right now will get a chance to go. But if your hand doesn't go up around now, this will be the last set of comments. Okay, you can go.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make a point about a few things. The new design and bike lanes around the schools, I think there should be these scoop outs that I've seen at other schools. I've brought this up before at another meeting, where parents, people dropping off children can pull over, let the kid out, pull away. I've found that to be a very successful endeavor at some other schools that my daughter went to. Another thing you have to take in consideration with the speed bumps that I know somebody asked about, I love the speed bumps and they definitely reduced accidents on my block. by a lot because when they were gone, we had a lot of more accidents, but they do not allow speed bumps in what are designated as like emergency vehicle zones. So near the hospitals in that area in particular, they're not going to put in speed bumps because ambulances, fire engines, whatever need to go down those roads. So as much as I love speed bumps, they won't put them in those places. I just wanted people to understand that. And as far as the speeding cameras go, that comes at a state level. So you've got to get the governor to give us more speeding cameras. From what I understand, we're allowed only 200 speed cameras in New York, and they put those in areas where they think they will do the most good. And if you want more speed cameras, you've got to make the governor give us more cameras. So I'm all in for that, and yeah, let's do that. But it'll be a revenue source. I am certain of that. I got one speeding ticket for driving in a school zone. I'll be honest, and it was driving my daughter to school. I got one ticket, and I never got another one because I was hurrying, and it was foolish. And after I got my ticket, I didn't get any more. So those tickets work, you know. So I just wanted to suggest that. And really no bike lane on Kingston Avenue where the commercial district is. Bad idea. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
them.
you,
And I just want to add one thing, like, what is really the goal of these meetings? Are you going to write another resolution in the committee? Like what's going to happen? Are you going to try and pass another plan? What's happening, Ethan? I'm not sure.
I'm not on the committee yet, but the plan with these meetings is to have some examples of, community feedback to basically help adjust the DOT plan so it's closer to what the community wants. We already passed a committee plan back in May, and ideally we'd like to have DOT adjust their plan to look more like the one that we submitted, because we kind of did this. We knew what the pitfalls were going to be, such as the Kingston, between Barrett and Lefferts. Like, we saw it coming, which is why we didn't put one there.
Should we be
so we wanna
writing
get-
letters on our own? Do you recommend that? Like what can we do?
No, not really. Not really. Just when we get to talk to DOT again, when we have them in the room, we will not only send this to them when they aren't in the room, but when they are, we'll basically be armed with a lot more feedback and ideas from the community to let them know what's a bad idea actually is a bad idea.
Yeah, you really got to talk to those business people in Kingston and people that live there. I think they have the best.
We did, and we are. And I think most people who live in the area already know what they're going to say because it's very obvious.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Jay Sora, your hand's up. You got the phone.
Hi, can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly.
Great, thank you. Several points. Number one, Tara Westerdahl, CB9 member, mentioned the idea of putting out posters to get the word out. I just wanted to talk about the topic of public engagement. I think that having a meeting in the middle of summer in August, when this is the only meeting in August, is a bad idea and actually hurts public engagement. And the reason for that is that the website, NYC DOT, when you look at it, they go over the various different feedback sessions. They will look to this feedback session. They will analyze the data, how many people were for it, how many were against it. This is what they have on the NYC DOT website. This particular meeting will be used as sort of evidence going forward. The problem is that it wasn't properly advertised in the middle of summer. Why pick August rather than having this in September? So that's one question I'll pose you to. Why can't we have a Zoom meeting in September? I realize that the email specifically said, look, we're going to have other meetings also that are in person. But the reality is a lot of people are not going to come in person because they don't want to lose a parking spot where they can't make it in person. So the Zoom meeting is very important. I'm afraid that the community just squandered its best chance at Zoom for having a lot of people come out because it's in basically August. Point number two that goes to this is that the Zoom link that was sent out recently doesn't work. There was a Zoom link sent out by the same person who sent out the daylights. I clicked on it twice. I could not get in. I was able to get in through the CB9 website only. Secondly, as far as Tara's point about putting up some posters, I think if there were posters that were put up on Brooklyn and Kingston Avenue, you'd have a tremendous amount of people who would come to these Zoom meetings. Okay, your point is correct that they're illegal if it's for like a commercial use. But if you go onto the NYC DOT website, it says that you could hang banners there if it's for a public use. I just looked it up. I honestly didn't even know if you were allowed to do it, but they actually have something where you could apply, and I hope that the community board applies for like a public use to possibly put up banners about a public event or maybe a hearing. So that's the idea that, businesses can't do it, but for a public use, you may be able to put it up for a public event. Number three, the two-way bike lanes that are south of Rutland and north of Winthrop on Brooklyn Avenue and Kingston Avenue, I think is downright dangerous. People's eyes are trained on a one-way street of looking in the direction of where traffic is coming from. If the traffic on Kingston is coming down and if the traffic on Kingston is going north, people are going to look south. So when you have a two-lane bike lane on Kingston and Rutland, on Kingston and Brooklyn, that's south of Rutland and north of Winthrop, I'm afraid that people are not going to look at the bikes that are coming the other direction, and they're going to get hit. It's not the usual way where you have a two-lane bike lane as compared to the other parts of the city and the other parts of the district. I don't even know if there's any data on that. So that's my point on it. And I would also ask that this shouldn't be. I appreciate your efforts, and there's two sides to this. Just to tell you about more public engagement in stuff of how the community feels. In one of the papers on like CoLive, which is one of the Jewish papers, there was like 36 comments. I think it was like 2 months ago. I forwarded the email also to crownheights.info to try to get more people out here. But it's one of the things is this zero-sum game, where I think it could be eliminated if people sort of realize that if you have a bike lane, we're going to condition any future bike lanes on the removal of existing bikes on the street, taking the bikes off of the street. And this is something that I heard Andrew Magnus, I think, came up with the idea and said this before. Can we take them off the street and put them on wide sidewalks? So I would echo that that's previously been said. Take them off the street, put them diagonally, like they're like on Clarkson. So when they come and say, listen, we want more bike lanes, condition it and say it's conditioned upon starting to remove all of the bikes on the street, putting them on wide sidewalks to do that. And crossing guards are also important. Somebody said, what about the kids? Maybe we could update the map and say, where are there crossing guards? Are there crossing guards near the school? On Lefferts, there's a crossing guard next to whatever the Jewish school is on Lefferts, and I think yeah, so they have a crossing guard there. The question is are there crossing guards in other places as well? So I would ask, I appreciate the effort, Ethan, on doing this, but I'm afraid to see on the NYC DOT site that this is the only Zoom meeting, and not enough people came to it because of the middle of the summer. I'd love to see another Zoom meeting, not just in person. Thank you very much, Ethan.
Okay,
thanks.
You're welcome. The meeting in September could very well be virtual too. We had planned for it to be in person since people would be here more than they would in August and September. But we can definitely have that be virtual, or we can even have another session that's virtual in September. But yeah, I also wanted to have an August meeting because I think the more of these the merrier to an extent, and I didn't want to leave out August entirely as a chance to get some feedback before September, so we can kind of hit the ground running when things start back. But yeah, definitely want to account for people who might not have been able to make it. And yeah, in future, I think we will have some more of the promotion so that people can see these some extra time in advance. But yeah, there will be more of these, and people are going to know in advance soon. Yep. Jay, feel free. Yeah, on the floor.
I just have a really quick point or question rather. How do I get a copy? How do I find the plan that the community board came up with so I can compare it to this one?
That I believe is going to be on the site somewhere. I'll see if I can send one to you because I'm not sure that one, it wasn't initially passed when it was unveiled. And then we split off of a different resolution, so I'm not sure it's gonna be on the website's list of like resolutions the board has adopted yet. So we haven't adopted that one yet. It's done in committee. But I'll talk to the board office and see if we can get that one uploaded as a draft so that folks can see it. But I'm pretty sure it's up there somewhere. I'm just not certain that it's there right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Shouldn't
by
it
the way,
be shouldn't it be in the meeting notes, like in the
Yes, it should. It should
in the
be.
minutes? It should be in the
It
minutes.
definitely should be in the minutes of that meeting. Definitely should be in
That's
the
where
minutes. I'll
that's
see
where
if I
those
can
things
find
should
it.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find that. And it would probably be in the May minutes, honestly. The May minutes of the community.
The main minutes are usually really vague, and you can't find all the documents online, which is
Yeah, I'll see.
unfortunate sometimes.
I'll try to find it right now and then post it in the chat here in Zoom. So give me 1 second. I'll see if I can get it. Hopefully they're all updated. Let's see. Let me see. It definitely should be there for sure. May. Very weird. I don't think I'm not even seeing them right now. I will have to I'll have to talk to the board and see if we can get them because they're definitely out there. I'm just not very sure they're on the website right now. Let me get your email address or maybe ask the board. The board office will forward that to you. All right.
Okay. I'll email you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ethan.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, 7:42. I think everyone had who signed up to speak. There we go. CJ Sawyer just got it. Great stuff. I think, is this let me see if this is the full one. And that's the past stand guidelines. That's just regarding, that's only regarding what was actually passed, excluding the bike lanes. So it wouldn't be in that. Oh, you have your hand raised. Yeah, you have the floor. And do one more speaker.
Hi, how are you? My name is Mayor New. I am a longtime resident of Crown Heights and also a member of the Jewish Community Council. I wanted to just pop in over here this evening to see how the proceedings are going and also voice some of my own personal concerns. The bike lane is, from the people that I've been speaking to, is not being very well received, the overall plan. There are a number of different items on it that are, concerning. I guess I'll get right into it. The first one is the protected bike lanes. I don't know if it's being considered, but when there's a protected bike lane, what happens is that you park and then the bike lane is, sorry?
No, I began screen sharing the plan again since you're commenting on it.
Sorry?
I just began to screen share the plan since you're commenting on it. That's all. Continue.
Yeah. So the protected bike lanes means that there's a parking lane, and then in between the sidewalk and the parking lane, there's a bike lane. Now, I have a bunch of kids, and I've many times parked on such a protected bike lane, and I have to tell you that my heart goes right into my throat every single time I park by one of these things, because my kids now are running out of the car, they're running to the sidewalk, and they're not thinking at all about a bike flying by in either direction. And it's something which is extremely anxiety inducing and poses probably a bigger a bigger risk to the children than all the risks that they mentioned over there, because no one's thinking about traffic going by, no one's thinking about fast vehicles, and the bikers do go fast, and they don't think about their this is my lane and I'm going there and I'm not thinking about what's going on. And you can't really ask people to go to the crosswalks because like you're parking in the middle of the block, so they're jumping right to the sidewalk. So that's probably my number one concern with the protected bike lanes. Obviously, a lot of what Jay said, I want to echo it. The parking spots and conditioning it on moving the bike lanes, the existing bike racks onto the sidewalk would definitely be something which would be welcomed by the community. In addition, the street which is near Beth Rivka on Brooklyn between Eastern Empire Boulevard and Lefferts is an extremely backed up street as it is, and taking away a lane of traffic over there would only make things much worse. There's some other solution has to come up over there. There's always cars which are double parked. It's also a conduit for the ambulances to be going down towards the hospital. It's like taking away a lane over there it's like a simple solution to a very complex problem that doesn't seem like it was properly thought out. I would very much like for the community board not to stand behind this plan and ask for a revision and for proper input and investigation into what's possible. And obviously we'd be welcome to be working with them to come up with some sort of solution which would make everybody happy.
Agreed. The board is working with them to get a better solution, and there are a few ways that we already have in mind to kind of fix some of these issues. But what we want is for DOT to incorporate them into their plan as soon as possible.
Right.
And then, present to us again if need be, so you can see what their edited plan looks like, see if it makes sense for the area.
Okay. One last question. Is there going to be any meeting in the future when a representative from the DOT will be present?
There may be. I don't know of any planned. I assume there will be at least one or two. But sometimes we don't know very far in advance. So sometimes you might see DOT coming and then not know who exactly will be there. So but the short answer is yes.
Okay.
I expect it.
Is there any way to press them for advance notice so that people can know to come to that meeting?
I mean, I can talk to the board office and make sure that, and then communicate with DOT as well. But we are going to try our best to get this feedback and other feedback we get from centers like this to DOT themselves. But yeah, we'll see. I'll talk to the board office and see if DOT can give us some advance notice so that when they come, we can have the public come to and maybe, add in their feedback as well.
Okay. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right, so it is time for us to end this meeting, guys. Thank you all for coming. There will be more of these. Maybe at least one more in September. And based on the feedback today, I think it may make sense to have it virtually so we can have more folks come. But that's it for this one. And the next one will be in September. We'll update you exactly when that meeting will be. And hoping to see and hear from all of you again. And for those who haven't spoken at this one, at that one. All right. Take care.
Thank you, Ethan.
Somebody has their hand up, Ethan.
No, he just spoke. That was Mayor.
Oh, that was me. Oh, okay. Just checking.
Yeah,
just making sure.
I didn't lower his hand, but just did, so it should be all good.
All right, cool. Good night,
Take care,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.